Coming up on Locked On Now NFL, Week 15 started with a great Thursday night game that shifts the playoff picture and will feature more exciting matchups throughout the weekend. This is Locked On Now NFL.
The biggest games, the best performances, expert analysis. You are Locked On Now.
What's up, everybody? You are listening to Locked On Now, local experts with the biggest stories around the NFL. I'm your host, Daniella Bruce, and thanks for making Locked On Now your first listen every weekday. To start the show, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers battle back and forth for positioning in the AFC West to start Week 15.
The biggest game.
The Los Angeles Chargers had a chance to pull even in the AFC West standings with the Kansas City Chiefs with a win, but instead LA missed out on getting over the hurdle of beating Kansas City. Locked On Chargers tells us what the lost opportunity means moving forward.
The Chargers had a golden opportunity in prime time to take control in the AFC West, and they let it slip right through their fingers. What's up, guys? This is Daniel Wade here from Locked On Chargers, coming to you after the Chargers crushing 34-28 overtime loss to the Kansas City Chiefs in primetime on Thursday Night Football, in a game that will be remembered as missed opportunities that ended up dooming the Chargers in this one. 3 possessions inside the Chiefs' 5-yard line that turned into 0 points. 3 fourth-down conversions that could have potentially been 3 field goals that ended up not turning into any points for the Chargers, and you end up losing by 6 points when you had 9 points potentially that you left on the table. Analytically, everything that Brandon Staley did was sound, and he's been doing it all year. But now when you look back on it, you let the Chiefs hang around, and they go off in the fourth quarter and end up walking things off in overtime and really probably winning the AFC West with this win. But for our full game breakdown and everything Chargers, make sure to subscribe to the new Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and follow the show for free on all platforms wherever you get your podcast from. Your team every day.
The Cleveland Browns have a chance this week to jump on a Raiders team that is struggling to find health and rhythm. Locked On Browns says Cleveland can win at home by taking advantage of a susceptible Raiders run defense.
This is Locked On Browns host Jeff Lloyd with your keys to victory this week for your Cleveland Browns. Saturday game, 4:30 start. Las Vegas Raiders coming to First Energy Stadium. Everybody knows the news. Browns right now are in a serious COVID situation. This game, it's not unattainable for this team. The Las Vegas Raiders give up 4.3 yards per carry. You have Nick Chubb. You have Dearness Johnson. With Case Keenum most likely at quarterback, you're going to have to run the ball, and you're going to have to run it very, very well. You still have Myles Garrett. You still have Jadeveon Clowney. You still have Denzel Ward, Greedy Williams. We'll see you on Greg Newsome. You've got your linebackers. Defense, you're going to have to really step up here, and they've done a fantastic job down the stretch. It's going to be a big effort from them. Make the game short. Play good defense. Run the ball, and keep your fingers crossed for some more negative health news as far as the Cleveland Browns are concerned. Jeff Lloyd, we appreciate everybody who makes us your first listen every day.
The Dallas Cowboys have a chance to clinch a playoff berth with a win and some other help this weekend. And Locked On Cowboys says focusing on that goal is key to getting the win that Dallas needs to play in January.
The Cowboys' key to victory this week is pretty simple. They just need to remain focused on what they're playing for this week. Hi, I'm Landon McCool with the Locked On Cowboys podcast, and going into a week where the Giants have lost their starting quarterback and potentially could be rotating who is playing quarterback this week, it could be easy for the Cowboys to overlook this game despite it being a division game, and a division game that likely will give the Cowboys the NFC East crown if they're able to win it. This is a team that has playoff aspirations, and more than that, they have Super Bowl aspirations. But they're an offense that hasn't played like a Super Bowl playing offense. Their defense, on the other hand, has been playing like a Super Bowl playing defense, especially these last 3 weeks. But the Cowboys offense really needs to get back on schedule, get back on track. So not only do the Cowboys need to win this game in order to get into the playoffs, their Cowboys offense needs to play better to feel confident about what they're going to do once they get in the playoffs. So for the Cowboys, they just need to lock in on what is at stake if they win this week, and remember that their play is going to reflect how they will play in the future as well. For more on this, make sure you check out the Locked On Cowboys podcast, and until then, I'll see you next time.
While the Cowboys are close to being in the playoff race, the New York Giants are close to being out. Without their starting quarterback this week, Locked On Giants recaps all the players set to miss the weekend for New York.
What is good, Giant fans? Patricia Traina here of the Locked On Giants podcast with your big question of the week for week number 15. The New York Giants host the Dallas Cowboys. And these are two teams that are headed in the opposite direction. Dallas is headed towards clinching a playoff berth. The Giants are on the brink of elimination. Now, the Giants this weekend will be without quarterback Daniel Jones again. He has still not been cleared for contact. Mike Lennon will get the start, but will we see Jake Fromm, who is now in his third week with the Giants and who has been practicing and learning the playbook? That remains to be seen. Head coach Joe Judge has not ruled that out, saying that if a guy gets a game uniform, the intention is to play him. On the defensive side of the ball, the Giants might have a problem in that they, between injuries and COVID-19, they might be a little short-staffed. So let's get you caught up there. The Giants, Adoree Jackson, their starting cornerback, still dealing with a quad injury. He is unlikely to play on Sunday. But now further complicating matters is the fact that COVID-19 has now struck Aaron Robinson, the rookie quarterback who had been starting in place of Adoree Jackson, plus safety Xavier McKinney. McKinney having been designated as a high-risk close contact. So just getting back to the cornerback situation, if Robinson is out, and again, he tested positive for the virus, it is believed he is unvaccinated, which would mean he would have to miss at least 10 days. The Giants awfully thin at that other outside cornerback position. Who's going to fill in? How is defensive coordinator Patrick Graham going to make up for the potential lost talent? That's going to be worth monitoring, especially with the high-flying Cowboys offense coming in and Dak Prescott and those receivers capable of striking it up with the deep ball. For more on the New York Giants, keep it here on the Locked On Giants podcast.
Coming up, more on what teams around the NFL need to do to get a win in Week 15. This is Locked On Now. This holiday season, grab the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, or even better than a candy bar. It's a Built Bar filled with so much holiday goodness, rich with decadent flavor, covered in chocolate, but amazingly low in calories, sugar, net carbs, and fat. And of course, it's high in protein, so you get the best of both worlds, delicious and healthy. Plus, there are so many flavors, you're going to have a hard time choosing. Will you have raspberry or mint brownie, cherry or double chocolate, cookies and cream or peanut butter brownie? Or maybe you like some of those marshmallowy treats around the holidays. You need to get your hands on a Built Bar Puff. They are light, fluffy, and marshmallowy through and through, different flavors, all covered in chocolate. They taste so good, you won't even believe that they're filled with protein. You can try all of those flavors and much more at Built.com. Use our promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Head over to Built.com right now. And again, that promo code is LOCKED15 for 15% off your order. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Daniella Bruce, and you are listening to Locked On Now NFL. Thanks for making Locked On Now your first listen every weekday. Let's continue to go around the league and find out what the biggest keys to victory are for these teams in Week 15.
Let's go around the league.
The Washington football team will be without plenty of talent with COVID hitting the locker room pretty hard. And Locked On Washington football team goes into who will be gone and what to look for from those on the field against the Eagles.
In part, just getting to the field this weekend to face the Philadelphia Eagles will be a victory. But for the Washington football team, they would, of course, like to come away with a win much more substantial than that. I'm David Harrison of the Locked On Washington Football Team podcast with your key to victory for Week 15 for the Washington football team. It's going to be interesting to see what roster actually takes the field against the Philadelphia Eagles this weekend, if they take the field, with the current trend of Washington football team players being added to the reserve COVID-19 list on a daily basis. Right now, the 5th-ranked Washington football team rushing defense going up against the 1st-ranked Philadelphia Eagles rushing offense would be the key matchup to watch, and it still will be, even with some of these players missing from the Washington football team defense, regardless of who is on the field. If Washington gets beat at the line of scrimmage by that Philadelphia Eagles offensive line, it's going to be a long day in Philly for the Burgundy and Gold. For more on this matchup and everything Washington football team, check out my co-host Chris Russell and I on the Locked On Washington Football Team podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Tennessee Titans may have bounced back from their losing streak, but now they face a Steelers team looking to stay in the AFC playoff picture. Locked On Titans says Tennessee getting a win will depend on protecting its quarterback against the Pittsburgh Rush.
Tyler Rowland here, host of the Locked On Titans podcast, with your Tennessee Titans key to victory for a Week 15 matchup on the road against the Pittsburgh Steelers. For the Titans, they have to improve in pass protection. The Titans gave up 4 sacks last week to Jacksonville. That brings their season total to 37 sacks allowed. That's the 5th most in the NFL after the Titans only allowed 24 sacks all of last season. The Titans have had a tough time on offense because they aren't able to pass the ball. They aren't able to take deep shots down the field because Ryan Tannehill simply doesn't have time to get those throws off. And that makes the Titans a one-handed offense. And without Derrick Henry in the backfield, it puts them in a very difficult position to generate offense. And against this Steelers defense, it'll be even that much more difficult. The Titans could see J.J. Watt and Cam Hayward on the other side of the ball. So they will have to find a way and devise a plan to be better in pass protection, or Ryan Tannehill is going to get battered again. And that spells doom for the Titans as they take on a much better team than the Jacksonville Jaguars in the Pittsburgh Steelers. For more analysis, make sure you check out the Locked On Titans YouTube channel, check out the Locked On Titans podcast, and thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen every day.
The most exciting part of the Atlanta Falcons this season has been the creative offense and the gadget plays brought by players like Cordell Patterson. But Locked On Falcons isn't looking to the offense to make the difference this weekend. He says it will be the other phases of the game that can give Atlanta a shot in San Francisco.
Defense and special teams scoring hold the key to victory for the Falcons in Week 15. I'm Aaron Freeman with Locked On Falcons. The Falcons offense is unlikely to go blow for blow with that of the 49ers, with the Falcons ranking 26th in scoring this season, while San Francisco ranks 13th. Instead, if they hope to find a way to win in Week 15, a victory that potentially holds the key and decides their fate for a potential wild card berth this postseason, the Falcons are likely to need some help from the second and third phases of the game, being defense and special teams. The 49ers have given up a special teams touchdown in 2 out of their last 3 games, while the Falcons defense has scored on pick sixes in back-to-back weeks. If the Falcons can find ways to add points on defense and special teams on Sunday, it might be just enough to overcome this 49ers team on the road. For more coverage of this matchup, follow Locked On Falcons, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Green Bay Packers clinched the NFC North with a win this weekend, but Green Bay has to beat Baltimore and the Ravens to do it. Locked On Packers says stopping the Ravens' playmakers from making big plays will get them the division crown.
No big plays in the passing game, or at least limit them against the Baltimore Ravens, no matter who is the quarterback. That's the key for the Green Bay Packers this week. I'm Peter Bukowski, host of Locked On Packers. And over the last month or so, Green Bay's defense, which had been so good at not letting anything get over the top, has allowed a handful of plays each game to go over the top to create big opportunities for offenses. And against a Baltimore Ravens team that has struggled to manufacture offense. In fact, Lamar Jackson has not gone over 270 yards passing since week 5. This passing offense is stuck in the mud. And the only receiver, the only pass catcher they have capable of beating you is Mark Andrews. Don't let Hollywood Brown or Rashad Bateman or Sammy Watkins create something over the top and put a spark in this offense. And this Baltimore team is not going to be able to score enough to keep up with Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers against an incredibly banged up Ravens secondary.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are another team that can clinch a playoff spot this weekend, and Locked On Bucs tells you what Tampa needs to do to get the win that will help it move toward its Super Bowl defense.
Defense and special teams scoring hold the key to victory for the Falcons in Week 15. I'm Aaron Freeman with Locked On Falcons. The Falcons offense is unlikely to go blow for blow with that of the 49ers, with the Falcons ranking 26th in scoring this season, while San Francisco ranks 13th. Instead, if they hope to find a way to win in Week 15, a victory that potentially holds the key and decides their fate for a potential wild card berth this postseason, the Falcons are likely to need some help from the second and third phases of the game, being defense and special teams. The 49ers have given up a special teams touchdown in 2 out of their last 3 games, while the Falcons defense has scored on pick sixes in back-to-back weeks. If the Falcons can find ways to add points on defense and special teams on Sunday, it might be just enough to overcome this 49ers team on the road. For more coverage of this matchup, follow Locked On Falcons, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Minnesota Vikings are still in the playoff hunt despite a long list of heartbreaking losses already on the resume. Locked On Vikings details what Minnesota needs to do to get a win on Monday night in the Windy City.
You know the great myth of Sisyphus, where for evils that he performed in life, in death, he was doomed to roll a big boulder up a hill only for it to fall back down, and he basically just had to keep trying over and over and over again, even though he knew it didn't work. Just thinking about that. Anyways, the Vikings have 4 games left this season. Luke Brown here from Locked On Vikings. They are playing against the Bears on Monday Night Football, which is always a big slop fest. So for me, in this game, if it goes the way it always goes, and honestly, it's so in the players' heads at this point, I think on both sides, that it feels like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that this game will be ugly. There's going to be penalties. There's going to be weird turnovers. There's going to be weird mistakes, and it's going to end up 14-16 or something. For me, winning a game like that comes down to like a nebulous sense of heart. But it comes down to not being able to, not getting down. This is something the Vikings have struggled a lot with. They have not withstood the emotional ebbs and flows of the game. A 29-point lead, 1 touchdown, and suddenly the whole thing starts to evaporate because you can't have that short memory. And the Vikings are going to have that short memory. Mistakes will be made. It's a division game. It's weird. It's going to be cold, nighttime, prime time. Mistakes will be made. Whoever comes back from those mistakes is going to be the victor in this game. And the Vikings are going to have to show a little bit more maturity than they have in previous weeks to come home with a crucial dub. For more on all this, you can find the Locked On Vikings podcast wherever you find your favorite shows.
And that's a wrap for us today, everybody. Thank you so much for making Locked On Now your first listen every day. For more on the NFL and your favorite team, make your second listens Locked On NFL and your team's local Locked On podcast. I'm Daniella Bruce, and this has been Locked On Now.